You get athletes who just turn up. They'll turn up, they'll do the requisite amount of work, but that's it. Athletes who turn up to compete, they put a bit more effort in. They try to be the best amongst their group. Then there's the athletes who train to win. They train every day, every session, so that they win on match night. And then there are just those very few players who train to dominate. They train so hard that winning is inevitable on race night.
I have an update to share with everybody. Everything you have been told about Mikhail Tal is a huge understatement. Words can't simply describe his wizardry. And in this game, Tal takes us on a journey through uncharted territories in chess. This ultra-rare masterpiece defies every conventional wisdom, as Tal employs unorthodox strategy that redefines the boundaries of the game. At some point in this game, I caught myself questioning whether this was chess or checkers, because Tal treats all his pieces with a level of egalitarianism never seen before in a game of this caliber. This brings me to the question, will Tal win after breaking all these rules? Well, let's jump right into it. The game opens as a standard 2 knights, queen's pawn. We get bishop to b4, pinning Mikhail Tal's knight. This is something like the Queen's Indian on the board, as the game was played in 1962 when the theory of many openings have not yet been fully developed. Let me quickly state that for a game that would take some wild turns, Tal actually played the opening in a very principled manner, developing all the pieces, but as we go on, you will see that it is just a trick, a shadow on the wall, probably to get his opponent into a false sense of security. Grandmaster Hecht plays h6, trying to get rid of the bishop pin, and then he takes and plays d6. His plan is to take the dark squared approach to the game and might even break the center later on with e5. At this point, the moment we have been waiting for begins. Mikhail Tal starts breaking rules. He brings his knight back and also moving it twice in the opening. The reason for this is because he wants the center, as that will allow him to show the tricks under his sleeves. Tal was a wild player. He breaks all rules for fun, he does not calculate and only plays chess on instinct. Tal was the elephant in the room no one could confront. To digress a bit, Tal was a man with a bag of stories. He was born with congenital deformity, causing him to have only 3 fingers on his right hand. Because of this, some people jokingly say Tal loved sacrificing so much, God gave him 5 fingers but he sacrificed 2 on his way to the world. Despite that hardship, he was a talented pianist, he smoked a lot and appeared on the board stoned to death like Goliath. Despite all of this, he was a world champion. The pendulum always swung too far for Tal because he took everything he engaged in to the extreme. Now back to the game. Tal takes the center, also planning to develop his bishop to take more control of the center. While Tal is about to go wild, his opponent is actually playing a very principled game. His pawns are on the dark squares, trying to play as positional as possible. But Tal was not wired for any type of game that requires long-term maneuvering and all those stuffs. So he takes control of the initiative and plunges into the queen side with the move c5. Tal's plan is simple. He wants to open a part of the queen side. So when d takes on c5 was played and Tal captures this, it opens the diagonal on the queen side, so a channel will be used later to snipe Black's king. In the next move, Tal utilizes this opening by giving a check with his queen, and Black plays it into his hand by blocking with his pawn, which also blocks his bishop and cramps his position. To be frank, I will cut him some slack because it was common for players in that century not to know how to handle Tal. Most of them could not attack at his level, so the only option was to play positionally. As a matter of fact, a match against Tal always started before the first move on the board. The first move of the tie was always the fear Tal instilled in you even before the game started. After some moves on the board, we get knight to c4, then queen back to e6 and Tal continues with e5. Notice his bishop is hanging, but who cares? Black strikes back with b5, trying to get rid of the queen before he then addresses other concerns on the board, like grabbing the bishop or the knight or even castling. But it was at this point Tal lost his ability to play chess and puts on his hat of checkers, where all pieces are of equal value. And in this position, with his queen hanging, his bishop hanging, and his knight hanging as well, Tal captured the knight on f6. There is nothing more ridiculous than this. Black responds with the most juicy option, of course, by capturing the queen. Let me attempt to explain the reason behind Tal's move. He is banking on the fact that Black's king is still in the center. The other thing is that although 3 of his pieces are hanging, Black can only capture one at a time. It is chess and not checkers after all. But will Tal be able to get away with all of this or lose the game? Let us continue analyzing and hope we get an answer to this. In the next moves, as if all of the things Tal had done in this game were not enough, Tal continues by capturing the pawn on g7, concurrently attacking the rook. This move does not only do that, it also opens the diagonal for his bishop. Black responds with rook to g8 to save his rook. I know some of you might think Tal should play rook to e1 to win the queen. Although that wins the queen, it does not work. Remember, Tal had already given up his queen, so Black would definitely gladly give back his queen by capturing the rook and also winning the bishop on h4. This trade will favor Black as it will reduce the material on the board, and when the dust settles, Tal will be down material with few pieces on the board, which will ultimately make him lose the endgame. But because losing and Tal does not get often used in the same sentence, and because Tal only does one of two things in any of his games, he either completely takes his opponent's soul or he will lead them into a deep dark forest where the road out of it would only be wild enough for one, and it should be for him. Tal plays bishop to f5, sacrificing another piece, another full piece. Now, all the three pieces are hanging, but guess what? They all work beautifully. You know, I said previously that Tal cannot play rook to e1 as that will lose a piece, but giving up a bishop works because if you take the bishop, there is knight to d6 check, which is also a royal fork, and Black will lose the queen and Tal would also emerge in a better endgame. So what would have happened if Black takes on h4? Well, you don't have to wonder because that was exactly what Black played. Black took on the bishop and Tal responds by capturing the queen. We get bishop to h6. This is a clever move. Notice Tal's bishop is hanging and it is the only piece protecting the knight. If the bishop moves, the knight will drop. So how does Tal get out of this danger? Well, Tal was a man of wisdom. He uses his knight to check the king, and as Black addresses the check, we get bishop to c4, saving his rook and also attacking the bishop. So if the king captures the knight, Tal will simply retaliate by capturing the bishop on a6. If you are curious, you may want to ask, what is the point of all of this complexity if you are still going into an endgame down a pawn? Or let me address that question. If you take a closer look at this position, you will see Black has two doubled pawns, a king in the center, and a 3-on-1 on the king side. But how did Tal convert this? Or did he really win the game? Or was his opponent able to manage a draw? Let's see. We get rook to b1. Black pushes the pawn. The king is checked. And we get another check again, and the king comes forward. Tal kicks out the knight and infiltrates the 7th rank. His opponent doubles the rook on the g file. A pawn falls, and we get exchanges of knights and bishop. The rook attacks the pawn, and Black responds by also attacking a weak pawn in Tal's position. We get captures and captures. The king is checked, and a pawn drops again. For the first time in the game, Tal is up material. The pawns are exchanged, and Black takes control of the h file, probably planning to get into the 2nd rank. We get pawn to g5, and Black attacks it with the rook. From this point on, Tal takes ultimate control of the game, and everything Black was banking on shrinks into irrelevance till we get to this position. Now to the big question. Did Tal win the game? Of course it did. In a match against Tal, it's either you win or you die. There is no middle ground. So Black, left with no other option, resigns. That will be all for this game. I would have loved to show you another game where Tal intimidates the great Garry Kasparov and destroys him in the most beautiful way possible, just like he did in this game. But I don't want you to get addicted to Tal's games, because Tal's games will take you to heights your chest would never reach. And when you are done touring with Tal, your appetite will have been ruined, because you will stop seeing beauty in normal chess games. But guess what? There is more of them to come on this channel, but not today. If you do not want to miss out on these games, please subscribe and let us get to 1K. Catch me in the next video on your screen that is even as mind-blowing as this one. Yes, everything you are seeing on the thumbnail is true. Adubo Chess. Bye. See you later.